Good evening, board members, Mr. Chavez, district staff. Time is now 12:15 on this 29th day, June 2018. I call the meeting of the Edgewood Independent School District Board Managers meeting to order. I will call the roll. Vice President Frank Espinosa.
Present.
Board Member Richard Santoyo.
Here.
Board Member Timothy Payne.
Present.
Board Member Stella Camacho will not be joining us today. Board President Roy Soto, I'm here as well. Let the record show that a quorum of the Board of Managers is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Travis, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. Board of Managers, the first action is A, consideration and approval of the charter application for Pre-K for SA, a City of San Antonio Early Childhood Education Development Corporation, created by the City of San Antonio. If you look in your first exhibit is the application for Pre-K for SA. The primary contact person, the chief executive of the corporation is Sarah Beret. She has worked with Edgewood. We have worked together, I believe, the last 3-4 months regarding this partnership. The first part of this partnership is to provide application for a charter application. If you look on page 8 of your board packet, it has the school information. The school information for Pre-K for SA includes 4 centers. The West Side Education Center, located at 1235 Enrique M. Barrera Parkway, is within our boundaries, stationed right there next to Wren Middle School. The other 3 locations are outside of the Edgewood boundary. That would be South Education Center on Bronco Street, East Education Center on Eisenhower Street, and the North Education Center on Medical Drive. The information on page 10 includes the executive summary of the Pre-K for SA Corporation. I'd like to state that for 5 years we have been part of the Pre-K for SA Memorandum of Understanding. We have partnered with Pre-K for SA, and as such, they have taken in approximately, in this past year, 124 Pre-K students that live within our boundary. In that agreement, they provide the services for those 124 students. And the subsequent year, in their kindergarten year, they return to Edgewood. Unfortunately, we've had some small returns. This past year, we had approximately 40% of our 124 students. So the goal, really, of the partnership is to increase the number of students returning to Edgewood for the reason of high-quality kindergarten and early childhood programs. In this particular description, there is an education plan which outlines the current Pre-K for SA plan. It's not different. They're maintaining the same high-quality pre-kindergarten education plan and school design. It is a governmental entity that has its own board of trustees. On page 12, it lists the number of students that are currently part of this year 118, which is going to be 124 students. If you look on page 13, it has a brief description of the program overview, partnerships that it has, and the curriculum and instruction. Our students over the past several years have participated in this program and have partaken in this program that's offered to the City of San Antonio. If we continue on, it includes information regarding school culture, family engagement, special populations, services for our students, recruitment measures, discipline, assessment, and it also includes inside of it performance measures for Pre-K for SA, as well as assessment evaluation. The assessment and evaluation piece is a critical piece because that's going to be the performance measures by which they'll be measured against. If we can look further on to the back piece, there is a attachment that's on page I'm sorry, that's the MOU, I apologize. At the very end is the action plan for teacher goal setting for professional development on page 23. And it also provides what the setup of the organization is and also their plan. This particular application, if approved today by the Board of Managers, will be submitted to TEA for their approval. TEA has a very stringent approval process in which they'll review this particular application. The other thing that I also would like to mention is that we've applied for a planning grant to TEA in the sum of $300,000 to provide us this planning piece for this year. So in this particular case, if we approve the application, then it'll be sent to TEA on Monday, if not today, probably today, and for their review approval. Any questions?
Board members?
Mr. Tavis, I have a question. In recent years, we do have our own 4-year-old. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We have a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old program. We have over approximately 1,100 students. Of those 1,100 students, 124 are pre-K for SA. 777 of those students participate in our Head Start program. 300 of them are in our 3-year-old program. And the remaining students are in our 4-year-old program that's offered by the district.
So how does the pre-K 4 SA line up with our program?
With our programs, we have, so theoretically, we have approximately 3 programs. Head Start 3-year-old, Head Start 4-year-old, our own program. And our program is a state-funded program. Also, all programs that we have are full day. Some of the differences that pre-K for SA have are some of their assessment pieces. And I think Dr. Miller could speak to those differences. If you'd like to, please come up.
Basically, the program offerings are the same. They're both full-day offerings. They both include extended day services and the full gamut of services around that. As far as student assessment information, Pre-K for SA uses an instrument called GOLD, and Edgewood uses an instrument called Circle and another instrument called LAP3. LAP3 is the instrument we're required to use by our Head Start partnership with the City of San Antonio. And so we can't directly compare the academic performance of their students and our students because we're using 2 different measures. We also both use an instrument called CLASS, and CLASS is an instrument that basically measures teacher and student classroom interaction in 3 areas, in academics as well as in behavior and relationships with students. And so that's the one measure that we can actually look side by side at. Additionally, there is work being done now citywide to find a measure so that they can track the Pre-K for SA performance over time to see how that compares with the long-term performance of students who return to the district after leaving the program.
So the curriculum is similar in many ways. We also utilize certain pieces of WOOF, for example, a fine arts component that's also used pre-K for it. Some of the difference really relies in is the amount of money that they are able to spend. Individuals, we are taxed as a city an 1/8 of a cent that goes to the pre-K for SA, which puts it in the area of $39 to $41 million to run the 4 programs for 2,000 students. So obviously it's a higher per student expenditure that they're able to spend.
The other significant differences in the 2 programs are the populations that we actually serve. Here in the Edgewood Pre-K program, we're serving basically a 99% low socioeconomic group because of the Pre-K and the Head Start requirements, whereas the group they're serving is at about 90%. And then they have about a 6% special ed population. In our early childhood program, we have over 10%, probably closer to 12%. And then their LEP population is about 15%, and our district LEP population is usually close to 20%. So we have a little bit more challenging group of children that we're serving.
So are we seeing any type of outcomes when they do come back to us? Well, I know San Antonio is not tracked. Are we looking at how they're doing when they do come back to us?
Yes, sir, we are. The data that we use is our iStation beginning of the year kindergarten assessment, and we've pulled that data on children who have been in Edgewood Head Start, Edgewood Pre-K, Pre-K for SA, and no program at all over the last 3 years. Consistently, it's shown that the most positive benefits have been for children in Edgewood Pre-K, followed by Edgewood Head Start.
And whose guidelines is it that special needs 6%? Is that based on federal? Because I know Head Start is always 10%.
Yes, and they don't have a particular guideline for their program that they have to meet. You know how in Head Start we have to serve the 10%? Their program just happens to be however many children get admitted into the program and then get identified. And actually, as part of the agreement, Edgewood is responsible for doing all of the testing for special ed and bilingual for those.
And in their program, are they looking for children to have dual diagnosis?
No, not necessarily.
And you said we use the testing, we use Circle.
And LAP 3. LAP 3 is used as a Head Start requirement so that we can compare our Head Start students with the SAISD students because we're in the same partnership. And then Circle is our assessment that we've selected as a measure for our pre-kinder 4 students. And so we use that measure to compare our kinder pre-K 4 children that are in the elementary campuses and our pre-K 4 children who are in the Head Start campuses to make sure that both programs are producing.
And you said they use the goal.
They use gold.
Your professional opinion, how would you rate what we're doing and what pre-K SA is?
Gold is a very high-quality instrument. I have no objections to it. However, it is a costly instrument. We honestly use Circle, which is approved by the state and doesn't cost anything to implement. It serves our purpose. It gives us the information that we need to have to regroup for students and to guarantee that they make achievement. If you look at the two instruments side by side, they basically measure the same kind of indicators that you want to look at for early children.
If you recall the presentations that we had at the last board meeting, done by our Stafford Early Childhood as well as our Cardenas Early Childhood, those students were kindergarten ready at the end of the pre-K.
What becomes confusing when you start to talk about kindergarten ready at the state level is the state looks at about 10 different instruments that can tell you whether kindergarten kids are ready. And it's not consistent. So the state will give you a number, but in Edgewood, that means they looked at iStation data, where in another district, they looked at whatever data that district uses. So kinder readiness standards at the state are still very nebulous. And that's what Mr. Chavez and I were just having a discussion over determining if we should move to a different kinder assessment to be more in line with what our children are getting at pre-K, regardless of if they're in Head Start, our program, or pre-K for SA.
They're student outcome driven.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. My other question is it a screening process that pre-K 4 has?
For pre-K for SA, there's an application process. They're a little different because they can take some kids that are over income, whereas in our district program, we absolutely the only over income we're allowed to take are our children who are our employees' kids. We have approved that, and that makes up maybe less than 10 kids a year, and of course children with disabilities. And so they do have a little more open in their enrollment in that way.
Yeah, I was just looking for if they have some type of weeding out.
Some kind of what?
Weeding out process. Oh, weeding out.
I don't know. I don't know what happens once we're not privy to that.
For purposes of clarity, for me, under assessment, evaluation, did you just tell us our children, our program, are a little bit better protected?
No, I would not state that. I could not compare the gold assessment that their children do to the Circle assessment. It wouldn't be a fair comparison. But what I did say is, yes, on the iStation data over the last 3 years, our children have performed at a higher level on that beginning of the year.
Once they're in our system, then.
When they start kindergarten,
We're
and
finding that our kids are a little further.
it seems like that transition, that's why part of this program, we want to work on transitioning. It seems like kids who are in our school and then move up to kinder in our schools do better. Not having to transition from another program into this program seems to impact how they perform. Now, the other thing we really have to look at, though, is remember, we're only getting 40% of those kiddos back that we send over there. Whereas with our group, the kids that we retain from pre-kinder to kinder is closer to the upper 80s. So if you go to pre-K here, and pre-K here is very popular because it's a full-day program, so we have a lot of kids who want to go, but then we need to keep them here as kinder students, and that's where the competition really starts. When we have IDEA and KIP and everybody else trying to get the kids at kinder level, so we've had to make concerted efforts not to lose our kids. So by far, the kids who start with us stay with us, and that may impact that data as well.
I have one more question. Do you think it's a disconnect when you're disrupting a child, you're taking them from here and then you're going to bring them over here? Do you feel that it's a disconnect also there?
If it were my own child, I believe that multiple years in a single school would be more advantageous.
Because of stability.
I'm sorry?
Because of, for the purpose of the stability.
Yes, for stability, for transition, for adapting, for knowing routines. You know, when you think they're 3- and 4-year-old students, but they're very resilient. And so because we do have a very strong partnership with them, and we do transition activities where we go over there, bring the kids over here, the kids adapt quite well. And so I wouldn't say it's a barrier to them, but of course, the longer you have to work with a child, the higher you can be held to having that child accomplished at the end.
Just because for data that I've seen, that when you have a child in a stable environment, they're going to do a lot better on testing.
And that's exactly what Mr. Soto was asking. That's exactly what our iStation shows. Even with our own kids, if they stay in their own elementary school and move up, that's the best performance on that. So that's why this year we've moved to put more pre-K4 kids on our elementary campuses, because we're trying to get the best of both worlds. We're trying to capture that group who need to be in their own campus, but we don't want to give up the Head Start group with 4-year-olds, because Head Start offers so many extra services that our kids really need.
Just my thought is this, with pre-K coming in this, I have a problem with them in there. Because we need to have kids in our own school. I just question that part.
Well, my preference would be to have all of them here, but my second preference would be that, Pre-K4SA provides an excellent program. I would not tell you otherwise. If we could just ensure that those kids were transitioning back to Edgewood for that kindergarten year, we could make the best of both worlds.
Being located in our district, then families have that option.
And quite honestly, they have advertising mechanisms and notoriety that's very hard to compete with. Now, this year, we've really busted it to try to get out there and become more visible out in the community and to market our program better. And so our trajectory for enrollment for next year is actually better in our early childhood program, even with them still having their 124 kids. But there's some advantages to having the dollars that they have supporting that program that, unfortunately, school districts don't have.
Because we have KIP and IDEA in our own backyard, that doesn't mean to push them as a means for our children.
Right.
So one thing I'd like to point out on page 25 is the exhibit remaining of these 1882 funds that are going to be generated. Page 25, 31. 5% will be retained by the district. 95% will be held by the district, designated for the center for use to train our in professional development of other people with district. It's also a piece that we don't have an increase in that number of students earning. there'd be a 10% reduction of those funds of those not.
Board members, do we have any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Just because I want to be totally transparent. On the piece of data called the class that measures the teacher interaction, there is evidence that the children at pre-K for SA perform at higher levels than the children in the district or in the city's Head Start program on that particular measure. Okay. So there's the iStation where we can show ours, there's class where they show theirs, but then the real academic data is apple to oranges, so can't be compared.
Thank you. Board members, do we have a motion?
Mr. President, a motion we approve the charter application for pre-K 4SA, the City of San Antonio Early Childhood Education Municipal Development Corporation, created by the City of San Antonio.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Board member Richard Santoyo moves. Vice President Frank Espinosa seconds. Do we have any discussion? We have no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Yes, action item B, consideration and approval of the pre-K for SA memorandum of understanding between the City of San Antonio Early Childhood Education Municipal Development Corporation, municipal development corporation created by the City of San Antonio, and the Edgewood Independent School District. Board members, this particular memorandum of understanding is not unlike previous memorandum of understanding. However, there is a piece inside there that outlines 95% are the use of the SB 1882. You could page 49 of your board book. It outlines the same piece that we mentioned previously regarding the 1882, SB 1882 funds of 5% remaining the district and 95% will be held by the district for in account for the center as they provide service, provide proper invoices. I'd like to, and that is the only part, ladies and gentlemen, that is different from the previous. Our attorneys did go in and add some verbiage, allowed us, protected us. If there is a reasonable amount that holds the district and its claims, that particular verbiage was set out throughout the document. If you refer to the back on page 61, Exhibit A is our insurance and indemnification limits that are cited in the MOU. Page 2, these two pieces, Exhibit B are administrative services. Those administrative services, page 36, that will be rendered for the 5%. Team student accounting, student recruitment and retention activities, transition activities, and special program support. Second piece, Exhibit C, is student outcomes, student progress, teaching strategies, bold, and there it outlines the procedures for the teaching strategies. Gold, for that particular, there's a goal, the scaled score for at least 80% of Edgewood ISD children who are enrolled in a pre-K for SA education center will increase 50 points from the first assessment fall to the final assessment spring in each of the 6 domains assessed during the teaching strategy. Second component is pencil tap. The goal is to Edgewood ISD children who are enrolled in pre-K for SA will add about 70% on the spring administration of pencil. In the back talks to the kindergarten enrollment. And ladies and gentlemen, this is perhaps the more important piece. Pre-K for SA will work in collaboration with the ISD to establish model kindergarten classrooms based on the pre-K for SA standards of high-quality early learning. Once model classrooms established, 70% of students who had attended a pre-K for SA education center and reside within campus where a model classroom is located will enroll for the kindergarten year. One thing that we may want to look at is for campus where model classroom is located. We are looking to expand these classrooms to all of our pre-K classes in the district. So that may look differently now till next year, or rather now till the beginning of school. We're looking at 70% as opposed to the 40% that was previously listed. Questions?
Board members? Board members, if we don't have any questions, do we have a motion?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I move to approve the pre-K 4SA memorandum of understanding between the City of San Antonio Early Childhood Education Municipal Development Corporation, a municipal development corporation created by the City of San Antonio and the Edgerton Independent School District.
Board members, do we have a second?
I second.
Board member Richard Santoyo moves. Vice President Frank Espinosa seconds. Do we have any discussion? We have no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Board members, we do not have any additional items on the agenda. Time is now 12:41. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Vice President Frank Espinosa moves. Board member Richard Santoyo seconds. Do we have any discussion? We have no discussion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay.
Aye.
Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.